Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rogues. In this video we take a look at the movie Batman vs. Two-Face. There's gonna be a lot of spoilers now, so keep that in mind if you haven't seen the movie. Batman vs. Two-Face is an animated direct-to-video feature film released in 2017. It was directed by Rick Morales, while the writers were Michael Jelenic and James Tucker. It takes place in the 60s TV show universe, introducing the characters of Two-Face and Hugo Strange for that continuity. In the movie, Batman and Robin meet with their ally District Attorney Harvey Dent at a laboratory for a demonstration held by Professor Hugo Strange. The professor has created a device called the Evil Extractor, which can theoretically extract the evil from a person. Hugo's idea is to use it on criminals, hoping to transform them into law-abiding citizens. The professor has lined up a large chunk of Batman's rogues gallery, intending to use them as guinea pigs for the demonstration. Something goes wrong during the experiment, however. The nasty knaves channel all their evil combined, which overloads the machine, causing it to explode. Harvey is caught in a blast, disfiguring his left side, and thus is born the villain Two-Face. As Two-Face, Harvey goes on a rampage in Gotham City, which eventually ends with him being caught by the dynamic duo. He then rehabilitates and has his left side restored. Sane and on a straight and narrow, Dent later returns to the DA's office as assistant to the assistant DA. But Batman and Robin soon discover that all isn't quite well with Harvey Dent. Turns out that the Evil Extractor explosion didn't scar Dent, it caused a physical second persona to grow from his left side, the incarnation of evil. This sinister version of Dent is now able to grow back at will, and it's made a deal with Dent. Remaining hidden, it secretly plots with a reluctant Harvey to have Professor Hugo Strange build a second, more powerful Evil Extractor. The dastardly duo will then use this to collect the evil of Gotham's worst rogues, and then unleash it upon the city, turning every hapless citizen into a Two-Face. So with this movie, we finally got to see Two-Face in the Adam West 60s Batman universe. He was famously snubbed by the TV show, never making a single appearance. Many have since then theorized why, and come up with fan ideas for plots and potential actors for the role. Now to be fair, this movie isn't the first to introduce Harvey to the 60s verse. It was done in comic book form a few years ago. But a comic isn't the same thing as a movie, not even an animated one. The comic used a completely different plot, and I wish I could compare the two. But would you believe it? I haven't actually read the comic. Pretty crazy considering I'm so obsessed with Two-Face. Anyway, so what do I think about this campy 60s version of Two-Face? It's really far out there, featuring a fantastical, almost supernatural sci-fi Two-Face depiction, more along the lines of villains like Poison Ivy and Man-Bat, as opposed to the classic scarred, crazy person from the comics. Two-Face is one of the more grounded and realistic Bat-rogues, but not here. This is a completely new direction for the character, but despite its outlandish changes, it still stays true to the core and essence of Two-Face. And I have to say, I love this new wacky take. It's not my preferred Two-Face of course, but as an alternate sort of Elseworlds take. Because what else is the 60s TV universe but Elseworlds? I think it works fantastically. The evil Two-Face persona isn't part of some mental illness, it's literally real, and shares the same body with Harvey. So they really are two people in one. What a great and inspired direction to go in. It's also a lot closer to the main inspiration for the character, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This guy really is the living Jekyll and Hyde. Watching this film, there was one thing that worried me though. Harvey himself didn't seem that sympathetic. He's in on Two-Face's scheme after all. His motivation is feeling dissatisfied with being a mere peon in the DA's office. You can kind of understand that. Going from the DA to assistant to the assistant can't be that fun. But what should he expect? He started a crime wave. He should be happy he isn't spending the rest of his life in jail. However, it wasn't exactly his fault. Harvey didn't commit those crimes. Two-Face did. And in this version, Two-Face isn't part of Harvey's psyche, but a real-life physical person who just happens to share the same body. However, I still felt his reasons weren't good enough, and Harvey should be better than this. But it's made pretty clear that Two-Face is the dominant one, and he's only growing stronger while Harvey is growing weaker, so there wasn't really much that Harvey could have done but go along. Plus, there's a whole bit about Two-Face suspecting and then proving that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Harvey's hurt by this, that his best friend kept his secret from him. These points makes it easier for me to swallow Harvey's questionable actions, but what truly won me over and eased my mind was at the end, when he completely redeems himself, fighting against Two-Face. Harvey's goodness truly shone through here, and he proved that he really is a hero. On a side note, Harvey punching himself in the face to stop Two-Face was hilarious. This is how you do a comedic Two-Face, not the Batman Forever way. So while his version of the character is very different from the comics, it's still a great depiction. I would even go as far as to say it's the best movie Two-Face we've ever gotten. It certainly beats Batman Forever, but I also like it more than The Dark Knight's stint. This Two-Face is after all a huge threat, as opposed to Eckhart's angry dude with a revolver, and he's the damn main villain. Just think about that. This is the first time Two-Face is the main villain in a movie. A moment I've been waiting for since I was 5 years old basically. Sure, it's just an animated direct-to-video feature, but that's better than nothing. Two-Face does also, for once in a film, totally steal the show. He's a real star here, and easily the best part. Hugo Strange is completely wasted, and this is perhaps the film's biggest flaw. Hugo is just pointless. We get almost nothing with him. He's a glorified plot device. They needed a scientist character to build the evil extractor. That's really the only point he's in the movie. Seriously, it could have been any generic scientist. They could have just created a new character of their own. There was no need to force Hugo into it. It's kinda reminiscent of how the animated series used him actually. A big waste of a great villain. Another rogue who's wasted, or perhaps tacked on is a better term, is Catwoman. She's in this movie too, and really only to flirt with Batman and then save him and the Boy Wonder from Two-Face. They could have cut her out, and the plot would have been exactly the same. Her inclusion I really understand though. She's voiced by Julie Newmar, who played the role on the 60s TV show. Newmar is one of the few original actors from the show who's still alive, so obviously they wanted to take advantage of that and utilize her voice performance. Besides these two, plenty other villains appear too, like Joker, Penguin, Riddler, Bookworm, but only in cameos, and none of them really stand out. Oh, and by the way, Harley and Quinzel also show up, very briefly, as Hugo's lab assistant. She was even more pointless than Hugo, and was clearly only included as silly fan service. There is one villain besides Two-Face who do stand out though, and that, my friends, is that goofy 60s rogue known as King Tut. Kinda odd, since he's one of the silliest villains the show ever offered, but really, he's put to great use in this movie. He appears earlier in the film. Fucking seagulls, shut up. He appears earlier in the film committing Egyptian-themed crimes, which are also Two-themed. It's all part of Two-Face's master plan, and yes, old Tut is being played for a sucker, but he's extremely entertaining and is featured for quite a bit, as opposed to most of the other rogues. Interestingly enough, Tut, much like Two-Face, also suffered from a case of split personality, and this is obviously why he, of all 60s villains, was chosen. The movie plays around with his dual personas to great comedic effect. Tut's thing is that he shifts between his villainous alter ego and his law-abiding civilian identity of William McElroy whenever he's hit on the head. In one scene where the heroes interrogate Tut about the whereabouts of his stolen loot, Chief O'Hara hits McElroy on the head to get his Tut persona to come out, as only he knows the answer. But to avoid the question, Tut hits himself, shifting back to McElroy, who knows nothing. The two then keep hitting back and forth. Probably the greatest King Tut scene of all time. So let's talk a bit about the voice performances. Two-Face is voiced by William Shatner, aka Captain Kirk. What a fitting casting decision. You had to get somebody big for this role, and who's more fitting than Shatner, the other legendary cult actor from a classic 60s show? It's so obvious, and I wonder why I never thought of it before. Shatner versus West, in the guises of Two-Face and Batman. He does the role justice too, playing it fairly straight, never truly hamming it up. As is the tradition for the character, Shatner uses two voices, one his normal voice for Harvey and another gruff, gravelly voice for Two-Face. What's also interesting is that they've animated Harvey to look like Shatner, and that makes you realize that the actor probably would have been a good live-action portrayal of the character too back in the day. This movie was, as you probably know, Adam West's final role. His final role as Batman at least. He died before the movie was even released. So this is West's final goodbye to the role he's so iconic for. His last entry in the Batman legacy. That alone should be enough to get any Batman fan to see this. Now with that said, is West's performance all that spectacular? Not really. It's good, but not exactly amazing. He kinda lacks his energy from the old live-action Batman days, but that's understandable. The man was old. You can certainly tell by his voice. I think, considering his age and health, Adam West did the very best he could. In the grand scheme of things, that was enough. It is a good performance after all, and he never phones it in or anything like that. He gave it his all to the very end. You have to respect the man for that. I mean, this was a grown man, and then an old man, playing a very silly character. A guy in a bat pajamas. Yet Adam clearly cared. He never did it half-assed, which could have been so easy to do. Burt Ward, who plays Robin of course, also gives it his all, and he feels more energetic in his role. At some points I can't even tell that he's aged a day since the 60s. He sounds exactly like Robin from the show. This is probably his last outing as a boy wonder too. Without Adam's Batman, Burt's Robin just wouldn't feel the same. I can't really imagine them doing anything with him, and I doubt that Ward would want to without West. I guess in the end, I'm just glad that these two got to meet face to face with Two-Face before it was too late. As for Julie Newmar as Catwoman, I basically feel the same about her performance as I do about Adam's. It's good, and she clearly gives it her all, but you can tell her age. It just doesn't sound completely right having these old actors voice these characters that are supposed to be young. But then again, having these actors in the roles is kind of the point. It's the novelty and the nostalgia of hearing Newmar and West play these characters once again. So ultimately, their aged voices don't really bother me. So there you have it, that's Batman vs. Two-Face. A great tribute to the 60s Batman and a fine send-off for Adam West as a Caped Crusader. It's also in my opinion the greatest Two-Face movie ever made. And who would have known it? A film set in the 60s TV universe, in which the character never appeared, is the best Two-Face movie. Oh, the irony of it. But fate's funny that way, I guess. I also hold this as the second greatest version of Two-Face outside the comics, after Taz. Let me know in the comments what you think of this movie. What did you think of Shatner's Two-Face and Adam West's final performance as the Caped Crusader? Anyway, next up in this series is a review of Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, so stay tuned for that. And as always, remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.